I've raised over $200 million. I've seen hundreds of pitches, and I've learned that there are 8 things that successful pitches have in common. It's the same thing that all the well-known startups use to raise money. We're gonna go through each of these steps live for a brand new startup, going from nothing to $1 million pitch, breaking down what investors actually want to see. Once you know all the steps, we'll have a download for you so you can build your own pitch for your own startup. So here is the first part of a successful pitch deck. If it's done right, you can get those investors hooked. The first part is motivation. Why are you here? What are you trying to do? Let's have a look at how Levin executed on that.
Here I would say that the motivation for this one came from, I remember this when I was in class one day and I was writing an essay and I had all these ideas. And then I tried to get them on paper and then turn them into words. And when I read it again, I just felt like half of it was missing, even though I had all these ideas in my mind.
So this is, I'm worried this is too long already. This is already too complicated, too long. So it feels like you end up telling your life story here anyway. And I think you need to either simplify this or just show something and say, look, this all sounds like fine, but I'm still not getting it. Like, how do you do that? And I understand we're going to get into problem and solution later, but there's got to be a simpler way of telling this. But let's get back to that. Just keep going, because we spent 5 minutes on this already. That's just too long. You have 30 seconds. You lost their attention. They're on their phones already. And the next slide is problem. Keep it simple. There's a problem, and we're here to try and solve it. Let's see how Levin executed on that.
So for the problem slide, I would start off basically saying something like this. So I realized that my idea, when I tried to turn it into words, which those words are what the other person uses to understand what I'm trying to say, is there was a bottleneck right here between my idea and turning that into words.
And the next slide is solution product. Basically, what are we building? Let's see what Levin did with that.
So for this slide, I was basically thinking of leading over, and I would say something like, this is exactly where Wordwise now would come in. And you'd start by evaluating your speaking skills. And since this is all built on top of an AI language model, the model can give you adaptive feedback based on what you put in.
Okay. We went from motivation into problem solution, I would assume, right? That's where we are now. And now I'm starting to understand that what this is about is your communication skills is to upgrade them to the next level. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's move forward here, but it's clear this section needs to be a lot sharper. It's also going to be a lot easier for you to communicate it. Now it's just too complicated. But anyway, I think I understand it now, but let's keep pushing. So what's next and after problem solution? As a potential investor, I want to see what this is. I want to see the actual app here. Are there screens? What have you built? And so on. So you have to put those in there. Now the fourth section is traction. Traction is always important, but Levin's startup is pre-launch. They haven't launched a product yet, so there's no traction to report. But do remember that traction is always important. It really shows the real performance of the startup. Next slide is market. And this is important because it's only investable if the market is big enough. Let's have a look at what Levin did with that.
So for the market slide, I would basically say something like, this is an untested market. Grammarly has over 30 million users and counting. They're growing rapidly. This shows there is demand. And to show that there's money to be made with this, Grammarly hit almost 180 million in 2023 in revenue. And now, since there is actually no real existing market, I went and looked on a different type of platform. I looked to social media to show that there is demand for exactly this. So a couple of things here. So when you say untested and untapped market, and then you show a competitor, that is a little bit weird, right? Then you have to say they're doing something else. But that could be a way to really pitch this thing, is that these guys over here, which do really, really well, they're just correcting you, whereas this new thing is changing behavior. Most of what you're saying here, all the way up till now, and we're 14 minutes in now, is about the problem. You really haven't told me the solution yet. Again, first you gotta simplify that radically, but I think that's all doable. But then you gotta show me the solution. Okay, good. We've pointed out there is some demand, there is a problem here, there's a certain size of it. Now tell me what the solution is. What is the app? What does it do? How does it change my behavior and educate me? That feels like it's totally missing. Next slide is business model. Any startup is a business. At some point you have to make some money. So for this one, I'd basically say something like, so how does Wordwise make money? I'd basically look at similar tools that are already mentioned, Grammarly and Quillbot, and how they run their stuff. They all run off basically a freemium model. They have a free tier, and they're trying to convert it to like a paid tier. So you should have if you keep talking about Grammarly and Quillbot, you should have their pricing in there. Make sure you're very specific on monthly or annual, so people see, because 1020 is that monthly, is that annual, what is that? Just have those. Maybe you just do a table here and explain that, right? The next slide is team. Really not that complicated. Show the team what kind of experience, what kind of background do they have that's relevant for this startup. Let's see what Levin as a solo founder did with that. and I wasn't really sure how to do this as it's just me. And I would just say, yeah, so who's behind the company? And that's me. I'm basically doing everything as of now and definitely looking to expand into a team. Should I just, go over this very quickly? What do you think?
The fact is that the full team is you. That's fine. But then you really have to build something there. Meaning, I know you might not think, hey, I've done that much in my life, but you have. Find a couple of bullets on what you've done, what you've built before. It could be that you helped build this channel. Just find a couple of bullets on that. I need to be convinced this is the most important part of an app that isn't really done yet, has no traction. What I really, really need to have faith in is the team, and that's you. So having like 3 bullets here saying exactly what you've built before and what you've done before. It doesn't have to be SpaceX, It can just be a couple of smaller things and then just make sure you tell that story. Everyone starts somewhere. What is next? The fundraising plan and objectives. How are you going to invest the money and where is that going to take the startup? So we really realize that the key thing here is to keep it as simple as possible. Make sure people understand what the heck you're trying to do.
Now, for this slide, I would basically do something like this, saying, so we're trying to raise 50,000 and putting most of that for now into marketing to just validate that demand and just build awareness for this tool and just see if people really actually want a tool for that. And also 40% for that, just building a team, building out new features.
I would definitely swap those, meaning you really want to build the great product here. Marketing for now should just be sort of testing, getting enough users. It's not about growth, it's about getting enough users on so you can get a feedback loop and learn from that. So marketing should really be a smaller thing. And then you probably want to make sure you say, what's the goal here? When I've spent this 50K, my goal is to have whatever this many paying users or free user or growth, whatever. Just say, okay, because the next question here is going to be, okay, where is that going to take you? And then you don't really have that answer in there. You have some building blocks here. There are a couple of things that are missing, especially the product side. You really need to build that. And then the first part here, you just lost me too early there. It's just too long and too complicated. You have to simplify that. And if you have to show a couple of sort of product things just to say, by the way, this is what it looks like, it's fucking magic, then put that in there too. But you have to find a way to do this in, preferably 30 seconds, but 30, 60, and you basically spend 5-6 minutes on it or more. That's a no-go.
Alright, so I basically now went in and fixed all the things Heini told me to do. And I realized, even though I had watched his first video on making a good pitch deck, you really have to put yourselves in the shoes of a potential investor, and then you realize some of these mistakes that I made are so obvious. And so this resulted in me basically rewriting everything I say in the beginning here. Why am I doing this? So basically cutting down the entire beginning, just making it short and simple. Now the next thing that was super obvious when he told me, but I completely neglected it when doing the pitch, is actually showing the stuff that I have, the mockups. Like, I have all the mockups, why didn't I use them? So in this slide, I not only added the mockup of the recording page, but I would also now actually go into detail on explaining the actual features, how the app would actually work. So this also resulted in me basically cutting down the entire market section and just simplifying it into 2 main competitors, showing that they have huge user bases, huge revenue numbers, and by that showing that there is demand and that there is a market, but showing that we're basically now targeting a new market segment, which is why I kept this slide, basically showing that there is a big market already and there's demand for this new segment. So I basically also cut down the entire script of me going over how it makes money. It's just now so much more simple. I just say this is a freemium model, just like some competitors do. Now what was really valuable advice was that I basically had an entirely empty team section, and even though it's just me, there is stuff I can tell about myself, and you have to tell that. So I also basically just simplified the entire fundraising section. I listened to Heini's advice, go more for product development and less for marketing in the beginning stages. We want to build a good product, so I swapped the split, and I also wrote out bullet points of what the funds would actually go towards.
Also make sure you go through the ultimate pitch deck guide, which has a lot of examples on each of these steps. And with all these lessons learned, the pitch deck will be downloadable in the description, so please go check that out. Now it's time for you to go build something.